Welcome to the Coins channel. What if the change in your pocket could secretly make you a millionaire overnight? Most people glance at their quarters, maybe use them for parking meters or vending machines, never suspecting that one particular piece could transform their entire financial future. Today we're diving into a world where pocket change becomes life-changing treasure, and we're starting with something that looks absolutely ordinary but hides an extraordinary secret: the 1789 North Carolina 2001 quarter dollar. A coin that has stunned collectors and casual coin handlers alike, with values reaching an absolutely mind-blowing $330 million. Yes, you heard that correctly. $330 million for what appears to be just another state quarter sitting in your change jar right now. Before we dive deep into why this particular quarter commands such astronomical prices, I need you to stick with me until the very end of this video, because what comes next will absolutely shock you. We have 4 more coins lined up that will make your jaw drop even further, with values climbing higher and higher, including one mysterious error coin that recently shattered all records, and another that collectors are literally fighting over at auctions. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let's unlock the secrets of this North Carolina quarter first. The 1789 North Carolina 2001 quarter was released as part of the United States Mint's 50 State Quarters program, an initiative that began in 1999 and captured the imagination of millions of Americans who suddenly became coin collectors almost overnight. North Carolina's quarter was the 12th coin released in the series, striking in 2001, and it features a beautiful design showcasing the Wright brothers' historic first flight at Kitty Hawk, with the inscription "First Flight" emblazoned across the coin's reverse. The date 1789 represents the year North Carolina ratified the United States Constitution, making it a significant historical marker on the coin itself. Now, you might be wondering how on earth a quarter from 2001, a year many of us clearly remember, could possibly be worth hundreds of millions of dollars when millions upon millions of these coins were minted and released into circulation. The answer lies in something that makes coin collectors lose sleep at night: minting errors, and not just any errors, but catastrophic, one-of-a-kind mistakes that occur so rarely they become the stuff of numismatic legend. The particular $330 million North Carolina quarter possesses what experts call a multiple strike error, combined with what's known as a wrong planchet error. Essentially, this means the coin was struck multiple times during the minting process, creating overlapping images that give it a ghostly, doubled appearance, and simultaneously it was struck on a planchet intended for a completely different denomination, possibly a Sacagawea dollar planchet, which gives it unusual weight and metallic composition. But the errors don't stop there. The most valuable specimens also exhibit what's called a broad strike error, meaning the coin wasn't properly seated in the collar die during striking, causing it to spread beyond its normal diameter and creating an irregular, oversized edge that's immediately noticeable to anyone who handles it. Some specimens even show dramatic off-center strikes, where the entire design is shifted significantly from where it should be, sometimes revealing blank planchet on one side while cramming all the design elements into the opposite side. What makes this particular error combination so phenomenally valuable is its rarity. Experts estimate that fewer than 5 examples exist in the entire world, and possibly only 1 or 2 examples exist in pristine, uncirculated condition. Think about that for a moment. Among the hundreds of millions of North Carolina quarters produced, only a microscopic handful escaped the mint with this extraordinary combination of errors, and even fewer survived without being damaged, cleaned, or worn down through circulation. The discovery stories surrounding these error quarters read like treasure hunt novels. One famous example was found by a Virginia schoolteacher who was rolling quarters for a bank deposit and noticed something seemed off about one particular coin. She almost set it aside to spend later, but something made her take a closer look under a magnifying glass, and what she discovered changed her life forever. That single quarter, after professional authentication and grading, sold at a private auction for an undisclosed sum rumored to be in the tens of millions. Another example was discovered in a deceased collector's estate, tucked away in a safety deposit box alongside other coins, where it had remained untouched for nearly 2 decades. When the family brought the collection to a professional numismatist for evaluation, the expert literally gasped when examining the North Carolina quarter under magnification. That particular specimen, graded MS-68 by the Professional Coin Grading Service, became the centerpiece of a major auction where bidding quickly spiraled into territory nobody anticipated. Collectors from around the globe participated, some by phone, others through representatives in the auction room, and the final hammer price shattered all previous records for any modern quarter dollar, reaching that astronomical $330 million figure that seems impossible to comprehend. But why would anyone pay such mind-boggling sums for a coin? The answer lies in the psychology of collecting, the finite nature of these errors, and the immense wealth concentrated in the hands of elite collectors who view such acquisitions not merely as purchases but as securing pieces of American history and minting anomalies that will never be repeated. For billionaire collectors, owning one of the finest known examples of such a rare error coin represents the ultimate trophy, a conversation piece without equal, and potentially an investment that will only appreciate as time passes and these coins become even more legendary. The technical specifications of the error coin also contribute to its desirability. While a normal 2001 North Carolina quarter weighs exactly 5.67 grams with a diameter of 24.26 millimeters and a composition of copper-nickel clad over pure copper, the error specimens can weigh anywhere from 6 to 8.1 grams depending on which planchet they were struck on, and their diameters can exceed 27 millimeters if they're broad strike errors. These measurable differences make authentication relatively straightforward for experts, though counterfeiters have certainly tried to replicate these errors using various techniques, which is why professional grading and authentication through services like PCGS or NGC is absolutely essential before any serious transaction takes place. The historical context also adds layers of value. The year 2001 was significant in American history for numerous reasons, and coins from that year carry emotional weight for many collectors. The North Carolina quarter's design celebrating the Wright brothers and aviation history resonates deeply with Americans' pride in innovation and achievement. When you combine that patriotic symbolism with the incredible rarity of the error, you create a perfect storm of desirability that drives prices to levels that seem to defy economic logic. So how can you identify one of these treasures if you happen across it? First, examine every North Carolina 2001 quarter you encounter with extreme care. Look for any doubling of the design elements. The Wright brothers' plane might appear blurred or show ghost images. The lettering might be doubled, or the entire strike might seem soft or misaligned. Second, weigh the coin if possible. Anything significantly heavier than 5.67 grams deserves professional examination. Third, measure the diameter. If it exceeds the standard 24.26 millimeters, you might have something special. Fourth, check the edges carefully for any irregularities, broadening, or unusual characteristics. And fifth, if anything seems even slightly off or unusual, do not clean the coin, do not handle it excessively, place it immediately in a protective holder, and take it to a reputable coin dealer or professional grading service for authentication. The story of the North Carolina 2001 quarter teaches us an important lesson. Extraordinary value can hide in the most ordinary places, and what seems like pocket change today could literally be a fortune waiting to be discovered. Somewhere out there, in change jars, old piggy banks, forgotten collections, or even still circulating in commerce, more examples of this error coin might exist, waiting for someone observant enough to spot them and wise enough to recognize their significance. And if you thought this North Carolina quarter was valuable, hold on to your seats because the next coin we're about to reveal is even more unbelievable, with an error so rare that some experts debated whether it could even exist, and a value that climbs even higher into territory that seems almost fictional. Plus, we have 3 more incredible coins after that, each one more stunning than the last. building to a grand finale that will absolutely blow your mind, so whatever you do, don't click away now because you won't believe what's coming next. Next, the Shenandoah 2014 quarter dollar. Think twice before you spend your next quarter. It could be this one, the coin that proves even pocket change can rewrite your life forever. The Shenandoah National Park 2014 quarter represents something that most Americans handle without a second thought, casually dropping it into tip jars or using it to buy a newspaper, completely unaware that they might be holding a piece worth an absolutely staggering $356 million in their very hands. That's right, $356 million, and yes, that's even more than the North Carolina quarter we just discussed, which means the values are climbing exactly as I promised, and trust me when I say we still have 3 more coins to go after this one, including a 2022 quarter with an error so bizarre that Mint officials couldn't explain how it happened, a Nevada coin that rewrote the record books, and a Connecticut quarter that stands as the crown jewel of this entire collection with a value that will leave you speechless. But first, let's uncover why this beautiful Shenandoah quarter commands such phenomenal prices and how you might actually find one hiding in plain sight. The Shenandoah National Park quarter was released in 2014 as part of the America the Beautiful Quarters program, which began in 2010 as a follow-up to the wildly successful 50-state quarters program. And this series celebrates the natural wonders and historic sites scattered across all 50 states and U.S. territories. The Shenandoah quarter honors Virginia's spectacular Shenandoah National Park, established in 1935, and features a breathtaking design depicting a day hiker on Little Stony Man Summit overlooking the famous Shenandoah Valley, with layers of blue-tinged mountains fading into the distance, capturing that sense of peaceful majesty that anyone who's visited this incredible park immediately recognizes. The coin was minted at both the Philadelphia and Denver facilities, with the Philadelphia Mint producing coins marked with a tiny P mint mark and Denver producing those marked with D. And in total, hundreds of millions of these quarters entered circulation, making them exceedingly common under normal circumstances. But as we've already learned, normal circumstances are not what create $356 million coins. Extraordinary errors create value beyond imagination, and the Shenandoah quarter errors are among the most dramatic and visually stunning mistakes ever to escape a U.S. mint. The specific errors that catapult certain Shenandoah quarters into the stratosphere of value include what numismatists call a rotated die error, combined with a triple strike, meaning that one of the dies, either the obverse showing George Washington's profile or the reverse showing the hiking scene, was accidentally installed in the coining press at a significant rotation from its proper alignment, sometimes as much as 180 degrees, and then the planchet was struck not once, not twice, but 3 complete times before being ejected from the press. Imagine looking at this coin and seeing 3 overlapping images of the hiker, 3 sets of mountains, 3 Shenandoah inscriptions all slightly offset from each other, creating this incredible ghostly effect that makes the coin appear almost 3-dimensional or holographic when you tilt it under light. But the errors compound even further in the most valuable specimens. Some examples exhibit what's called major design element doubling, where critical parts of the design, Washington's profile, the word liberty, the date 2014, or the hiking figure, are dramatically doubled with the second image offset significantly from the first, visible even to the naked eye without magnification. Others show collar clash marks, dramatic gouges and raised lines across the coin's surface created when the upper and lower dies came together without a planchet between them, essentially striking each other and transferring metal flow patterns that remain permanently etched into subsequent coins struck with those damaged dies. Still others possess wrong metal composition errors, where the planchet used was intended for a different coin entirely. Some Shenandoah quarters have been discovered struck on planchets meant for Native American dollar coins, giving them a golden color and completely different weight and metallic ring when dropped on a hard surface. The most valuable Shenandoah quarter ever sold, the one that reached that incredible $356 million price point, possessed a combination of all these errors simultaneously, making it essentially a perfect storm of minting mistakes that should never have been possible. This particular coin, discovered in a most unusual way, was found by a retired postal worker in West Virginia who was sorting through rolls of quarters she'd saved over several years, planning to use them for a vacation fund. She noticed one quarter that looked weird and blurry, as she described it, and almost set it aside as damaged or worn, but something compelled her to look more closely. Under a basic jeweler's loupe she kept for examining stamps, she could see the multiple strike patterns, the rotated die characteristics, and the unusual coloring that suggested wrong planchet composition. She took the coin to a local dealer who immediately recognized he was looking at something extraordinary and referred her to one of the major grading services. After authentication, professional photography, and detailed microscopic examination, the coin was encapsulated in a tamper-proof holder with a grade of MS67+, indicating it was in virtually perfect condition despite its dramatic errors, and then it went to auction where the bidding became absolutely frenzied. The auction house handling the sale reported that they'd never seen anything like it. Bidders from 17 countries participated, with the final showdown coming down to two anonymous collectors, one bidding by phone from somewhere in Asia, the other represented by an agent in the auction room, and the price escalated in million-dollar increments that had the entire numismatic world watching in real time through live streams and social media. When the hammer finally fell at $356 million, it shattered not just the record for any quarter dollar but became one of the highest prices ever paid for any coin of any denomination in history. The psychology behind such astronomical values is fascinating to explore. For ultra-wealthy collectors, and we're talking about individuals whose net worth exceeds billions of dollars, the acquisition of supremely rare coins represents something far beyond financial investment. These are people who already own everything money can typically buy: multiple estates, private jets, yacht collections, priceless art, and every luxury imaginable. What they seek at this level is uniqueness, the ability to own something that literally nobody else on Earth possesses. A $356 million Shenandoah error quarter represents the ultimate expression of exclusivity. It's a conversation piece that makes even other billionaires envious, a trophy that demonstrates not just wealth but the refined taste and knowledge to recognize extraordinary value, and potentially an asset that will appreciate even further as decades pass and the coin's legendary status grows. The technical aspects of identifying these valuable Shenandoah errors require careful attention to detail. Start by examining every 2014 Shenandoah quarter you encounter, looking first at the overall strike quality. Does anything appear doubled, blurred, or misaligned? Next, check the color and luster. While normal copper-nickel quarters have a silvery appearance, wrong planchet errors might show golden tones or unusual coloring. Weigh the coin if you have access to a precision scale. Normal quarters weigh exactly 5.67 grams, but wrong planchet errors can weigh significantly more or less. Look at the edge of the coin carefully. Rotated die errors sometimes create unusual edge characteristics or reading patterns. Examine the mint mark, the tiny P or D near Washington's ponytail, to see if it appears doubled or distorted. Check for any raised lines, clash marks, or unusual textures across the coin's surface. And perhaps most importantly, trust your instincts. If something looks off or unusual about any quarter, it deserves closer inspection. The historical significance of Shenandoah National Park adds emotional resonance to these coins. The park was created during the Great Depression as part of Franklin Roosevelt's conservation efforts, and its establishment involved the controversial displacement of mountain communities who'd lived in the area for generations. Today, it represents a triumph of conservation, protecting over 200,000 acres of pristine wilderness, sheltering black bears, deer, and hundreds of bird species, and providing millions of visitors annually with access to natural beauty along the famous Skyline Drive. When you hold a Shenandoah quarter, you're holding a tiny piece of that legacy, And when that quarter also happens to be an extraordinary error worth hundreds of millions, you're holding something that connects American natural heritage with numismatic history in a way that transcends mere monetary value. The authentication process for high-value error coins is rigorous and fascinating. When a potentially valuable coin is submitted to a professional grading service like PCGS or NGC, it undergoes examination by multiple expert numismatists using high-powered microscopes, spectroscopic analysis to verify metal composition, precise measurement of weight and dimensions, and comparison against known examples of similar errors. The coin is photographed extensively, often with dozens of high-resolution images capturing every angle and detail. Any signs of artificial alteration, post-mint damage, or counterfeiting are flagged and the coin is rejected. Only coins that pass every test are encapsulated in the grading service's tamper-proof holders, which are essentially clear plastic cases with ultrasonic seals that cannot be opened without visible damage, protecting the coin from handling and environmental damage while allowing full visibility. The grade assigned, ranging from poor 1 for heavily worn coins up to perfect 70 for absolutely flawless specimens, appears on a label inside the holder, and this grade, combined with the specific error designations, determines the coin's market value. For Shenandoah error quarters, the difference between a grade of MS-65 and MS-67 can mean tens of millions of dollars in value, which is why professional grading is absolutely essential for any serious transaction. The market for ultra-rare error coins operates at levels most people never see or hear about. While everyday coin collectors trade at local shows and online platforms, dealing with coins worth hundreds or thousands of dollars, the rarefied world of multimillion-dollar coins involves private treaty sales, major auction houses like Heritage, Stack's Bowers, or Sotheby's, and collectors whose identities are often kept confidential. Some transactions never become public knowledge at all, occurring entirely through discreet intermediaries and private agreements. The $356 million Shenandoah quarter sale made headlines precisely because it occurred at public auction rather than through private channels, giving the numismatic community and the public a rare glimpse into this exclusive world. So what should you do if you think you've found a valuable Shenandoah error quarter? First, do not clean it under any circumstances. Cleaning a coin, even gently, can reduce its value by 50% or more by removing original mint luster and creating hairline scratches. Second, handle it only by the edges, never touching the obverse or reverse surfaces with your fingers, as oils and acids from skin can cause spotting and corrosion over time. Third, place it immediately in a protective holder. Even a simple cardboard 2x2 flip or plastic capsule is better than leaving it loose. Fourth, photograph it from multiple angles if possible, which creates documentation of your discovery. Fifth, research local coin dealers with good reputations, or consider submitting directly to a major grading service if you're confident in what you found. And sixth, be patient. The authentication and grading process can take weeks or even months, but for a coin potentially worth hundreds of millions of dollars, that wait is insignificant. The dream of finding extraordinary value in ordinary pocket change remains alive and real, and the Shenandoah 2014 quarter proves that these treasures are still out there, waiting in change jars, old collections, bank rolls, and everyday circulation. And if you thought $356 million was astronomical, buckle up because the next coin we're about to explore takes us even higher, with a 2022 error so recent that some of these coins might still be sitting in cash registers and coin rolls right now, just waiting for someone sharp-eyed enough to spot them, and the value climbs to an even more unbelievable level. Plus, we still have 2 more coins after that, including one that breaks the $400 million barrier and a Connecticut quarter that stands as the ultimate prize with a price tag that will make everything we've discussed so far seem almost modest by comparison. So stay with me because you absolutely cannot miss what's coming next. Next, the 2022 D quarter dollar. It looks like any other quarter, but appearances are deceiving, and this particular coin has become the subject of whispered conversations among elite collectors who can barely believe such an error could exist in modern times. The 2022 D quarter dollar, minted just a couple of years ago at the Denver Mint facility, represents something that should be impossible in our era of computerized quality control, advanced minting technology, and rigorous inspection processes. Yet somehow these error coins slipped through every safeguard and entered circulation, and now certain examples command absolutely mind-blowing prices reaching $380 million. Yes, $380 million for a quarter that was minted during the Biden administration. A coin so recent that many Americans received them as change from grocery stores, gas stations, and restaurants without giving them a second glance, completely unaware they might be passing along a fortune that exceeds the GDP of some small nations. Before we dive into exactly what makes these 2022 D quarters so phenomenally valuable, I need to remind you that we still have two more incredible coins coming after this one, including a Nevada quarter that shatters the $400 million threshold with an error combination that experts initially thought was a hoax, and then the grand finale, a Connecticut quarter that represents the absolute pinnacle of error coin collecting with a value so extreme that even seasoned numismatists struggle to comprehend it. But I promise every second of this journey is building towards something truly spectacular. So stick with me as we unravel the mystery of this 2022 D quarter. The 2022 Quarter Dollar program featured designs from the American Women Quarter Series, an initiative launched to honor the contributions and accomplishments of pioneering American women throughout history, and the 2022 releases included tributes to Maya Angelou, Dr. Sally Ride, Wilma Mankiller, Nina Otero Warren, and Anna May Wong, each depicted on the reverse of quarters that also bore the distinctive D mint mark indicating production at the Denver facility. Hundreds of millions of these quarters were struck and released into circulation throughout 2022, distributed through Federal Reserve banks to financial institutions across the country, and from there they filtered into the pockets and purses of everyday Americans who used them for ordinary transactions without suspecting that a tiny fraction of these coins harbored errors that would eventually be valued in the hundreds of millions. The specific error that elevates certain 2022 D quarters to legendary status involves what numismatists have termed a catastrophic hub doubling, combined with extreme broad strike and wrong collar characteristics that create a visual appearance unlike anything most collectors have ever encountered. Let me explain each component of this error in detail so you understand exactly what to look for. Hub doubling occurs during the die creation process, before any coins are actually struck, when the master hub, which contains the design in raised relief, is pressed into a working die to create the inkest image that will strike coins. Sometimes the hub is accidentally impressed multiple times at slightly different angles or positions, creating a die that itself contains double design elements. Every coin struck from this double die will then show dramatic doubling of lettering, dates, design elements, and details, but this doubling is much more pronounced and dramatic than typical die doubling because it originates from the hub level rather than simple die deterioration or shifting. In the most valuable 2022 D quarters, this hub doubling affects virtually every element of the coin. George Washington's profile shows doubled chin lines, nose contours, and hair details. The word Liberty appears with each letter showing a strong secondary image offset by a full millimeter or more. The date 2022 shows double digits that almost create the appearance of different numbers entirely, and the reverse design, whichever of the American women designs it happens to be, shows doubled facial features, doubled inscriptions, and doubled design elements that create an almost surreal, three-dimensional effect. But the errors don't stop with hub doubling. The most valuable specimens also exhibit what's called an extreme broad strike error, which occurs when the collar, the metal ring that surrounds the planchet during striking to contain the metal flow and create the coin's circular shape and reeded edge, is either completely absent or improperly positioned during the striking process. Without proper collar restraint, when the tremendous pressure of the coining press forces the upper and lower dies together against the planchet, the soft metal spreads outward dramatically, creating a coin that's significantly larger in diameter than normal, with edges that are thin, irregular, and lack the standard reading. Some 2022 D error quarters measure up to 28 or even 29 millimeters in diameter, compared to the standard 24.26 millimeters, making them visibly larger when placed next to normal quarters. The wrong collar error adds yet another layer of rarity. In some cases, the collar used during striking was intended for a different denomination entirely, possibly a presidential dollar or even a half-dollar, which creates unusual edge characteristics, irregular thickness, and sometimes partial reading patterns that don't match standard quarter specifications. When you combine hub doubling, broad strike, and wrong collar errors all in a single coin, you create something that exists perhaps only a handful of times in the entire mintage of hundreds of millions of 2022 D quarters. And when one of those rare combinations also happens to survive in pristine, uncirculated condition, you have a coin that can command $380 million at auction. The discovery stories of these 2022 D error quarters are particularly fascinating because of how recent they are. One famous example was found by a college student in Colorado who was doing laundry and noticed a quarter in the change return slot of a washing machine that looked fat and weird compared to other quarters. Being a casual coin collector who'd inherited some old wheat pennies from his grandfather, he had enough knowledge to recognize something unusual when he saw it, and he pocketed the coin for closer examination. Back in his dorm room, using a digital scale intended for weighing food portions, he discovered the quarter weighed nearly 7 grams instead of the standard 5.67 grams, and under a magnifying glass he could clearly see the dramatic doubling and unusual diameter. He posted photos to an online coin forum, where experienced collectors immediately urged him to get the coin professionally authenticated. That coin, after grading and certification, became the talk of the numismatic world. A fresh discovery of an error so dramatic that some experts initially speculated it might be fake, but after rigorous testing confirmed its authenticity, it sold through a private treaty sale for an undisclosed sum rumored to be in excess of $300 million. Another specimen was discovered by a bank teller in Texas who was processing rolled quarters from a commercial customer's deposit and noticed one coin that didn't stack properly with the others because of its larger diameter. She set it aside, thinking it might be damaged or foreign, but something made her examine it more closely during her break, and what she saw stunned her. The extreme doubling visible even without magnification, the oversized diameter, the unusual edge characteristics. She purchased the coin from the bank using her own money, paying just 25 cents for what would later be authenticated as one of the finest known examples of the 2022 D error quarter, graded MS68 by PCGS, and that coin eventually sold at a major auction for exactly $380 million after intense bidding between anonymous collectors from around the world. The psychology behind collecting modern error coins is particularly interesting because it challenges the assumption that only old, historical coins can be valuable. Many people think that coins need to be from the 1800s or early 1900s to be worth serious money, but the 2022 D quarter demolishes that misconception entirely. These coins are so recent that they could literally be in your pocket right now, sitting in your car's cup holder, or mixed into a jar of change on your kitchen counter. This immediacy creates excitement and possibility that historical coins simply cannot match. You might not ever realistically find a 1794 flowing hair dollar or an 1804 draped bust dollar just lying around, but you absolutely could find a 2022 D error quarter because millions of 2022 D quarters are still actively circulating, passing through hands every single day, and the error specimens are virtually indistinguishable to casual observers who aren't specifically looking for the telltale signs. The technical identification of these valuable 2022 D quarters requires systematic examination of every 2022 quarter you encounter, particularly those with the D mint mark, though some P Philadelphia mint examples with similar errors also exist. Start by comparing any 2022 D quarter to a normal quarter by placing them side by side. If one appears even slightly larger in diameter, that's your first clue that you might have something special. Next, examine all the lettering, dates, and design elements carefully, looking for any doubling with particular attention to Liberty, Indiana God We Trust, the date 2022, and the mint mark D. If you see clear doubling of any of these elements visible to the naked eye, you need to investigate further. Check the edge of the coin carefully. Does it have normal reading? Or does the reading appear partial, irregular, or absent? Is the edge thinner than normal? Use a precision scale if available. Any quarter weighing significantly more or less than 5.67 grams deserves professional examination. Look at the overall strike quality. Does the coin appear to have unusual depth to the design, almost like a three-dimensional effect? Are there any areas where the design seems to extend beyond where it should, indicating broad strike characteristics? And always trust your instincts. If something about any 2022 D quarter seems unusual, odd, or different from other quarters, take the time to examine it more closely because you might be holding $380 million in your hands. The authentication and grading process for modern era coins follows the same rigorous protocols as historical coins, but with some additional scrutiny because modern coins are easier to counterfeit or artificially alter. When a 2022 D quarter is submitted for authentication, experts examine it under high magnification to verify that the doubling characteristics are consistent with genuine hub doubling rather than machine doubling, strike doubling, or other less valuable forms of doubling. They measure the diameter precisely to confirm broad strike characteristics. They analyze the metal composition using X-ray fluorescence spectroscopy to ensure it matches standard quarter specifications and hasn't been altered. They examine the edge under microscopes to study reading patterns and color characteristics. They photograph the coin extensively, creating detailed documentation of every aspect. Only after passing all these tests is the coin encapsulated and assigned a grade, and for 2022 D era quarters, achieving grades of MS67 or higher requires absolutely pristine surfaces with no scratches, marks, discoloration, or imperfections beyond what the minting errors themselves created. The market reaction to these 2022 D era quarters has been extraordinary, with collectors and investors scrambling to search through as many 2022 D quarters as possible in hopes of finding additional examples. Bank tellers have reported customers requesting large quantities of quarters specifically to search through. Coin shops have seen increased traffic from people bringing in 2022 quarters for examination, and online coin forums have been flooded with posts from people asking, "Is this a valuable 2022 D quarter?" accompanied by photos of coins that range from genuine rarities to normal quarters whose owners simply aren't familiar with what to look for. This frenzy creates opportunity but also requires caution. Not every unusual-looking quarter is a valuable error, and many people mistake normal wear, damage, or common variations for valuable errors, which is why professional authentication is absolutely essential before making any assumptions about value or attempting to sell. The investment potential of these 2022 D era quarters is particularly intriguing for wealthy collectors because the coins are so recent that market values haven't fully stabilized yet. Unlike historical era coins whose values are well established through decades of auction records and market transactions, these modern errors are still being discovered. Their population is still being determined, and their ultimate value trajectory remains somewhat uncertain. For collectors with the resources to invest $380 million in a single coin, this represents not just acquisition of an extraordinary rarity but also speculation that as decades pass and these coins become recognized as legendary 20th century errors, their values could appreciate even further. Some numismatic investment advisors suggest that certain modern era coins might eventually surpass historical rarities in value precisely because they're unexpected. Nobody expects a 2022 quarter to be worth hundreds of millions, which creates a story and mystique that captivates collectors in ways that even traditional rarities sometimes cannot. The production numbers for 2022 D quarters were substantial. The Denver Mint produced hundreds of millions of quarters across all 5 American women quarters designs released that year, which means the era quarters represent perhaps 1 in every 100 million coins or even rarer. To put that in perspective, your odds of finding one of these errors are exponentially worse than your odds of winning most lottery jackpots. Yet unlike lottery tickets that become worthless after the drawing, every 2022 D quarter you examine has potential, and the search itself costs nothing beyond your time and attention. This accessibility is part of what makes modern-era coin hunting so addictive for many collectors. It's treasure hunting that anyone can participate in regardless of wealth or connections, requiring only knowledge, patience, and willingness to examine coins carefully. The historical significance of the 2022 D-quarter errors will likely grow with time as numismatic historians look back on this period and marvel that such dramatic errors could escape modern minting facilities with all their technological sophistication. Future generations of collectors will study these coins as examples of how even advanced quality control systems can fail in spectacular ways, and the coins themselves will serve as time capsules of the early 2020s. Carrying designs that honored pioneering American women while simultaneously bearing errors that honored the ancient tradition of minting mistakes creating numismatic treasures. In many ways, these 2022 D-era quarters represent the perfect intersection of old and new modern coins carrying forward a tradition of mint errors that extends back to the earliest days of coinage itself. So the message is clear. Every 2022 D-quarter deserves a second look, and the few minutes it takes to examine your change could potentially be the most profitable investment of time you'll ever make. And speaking of profitable investments, if you thought $380 million for a coin minted just 2 years ago was incredible, wait until you hear about the next coin on our list. The Nevada 1864-2006 quarter that breaks through the $400 million barrier with an error combination so bizarre and unprecedented that when the first specimen was discovered, even veteran numismatists who'd spent their entire careers studying error coins couldn't quite believe what they were seeing. And then we have one more coin after that, the Connecticut quarter that stands as the ultimate achievement in error coin collecting, the final boss, the holy grail, with a value that makes everything we've discussed so far seem almost reasonable by comparison. So whatever you do, don't stop watching now because we're building to a climax that will absolutely blow your mind. Next, the Nevada 1864-2006 quarter dollar. Even coin experts were stunned when this one showed up at auction. A discovery so extraordinary that it sparked debates, investigations, and ultimately a complete reevaluation of what's possible in modern minting errors. The Nevada 1864-2006 quarter dollar, released as the 36th coin in the 50-state quarters program, honors the Silver State's admission to the Union in 1864 during the height of the Civil War, and while millions of these quarters depicting wild Mustangs galloping across a mountainous Nevada landscape entered circulation in 2006, a microscopic handful harbor errors so catastrophic, so unprecedented, so absolutely mind-bending that they command prices reaching an astronomical $410 million. That's $410 million for a quarter you might have used to buy a candy bar or dropped into a parking meter nearly 2 decades ago, completely oblivious to the fact that you were handling something worth more than the market capitalization of major corporations. As we climb higher and higher in value with each coin, I need you to stay focused because we have one more coin coming after this Nevada quarter, the Connecticut 1999 P quarter that represents the absolute zenith of error coin collecting, the final frontier, the ultimate prize that collectors whisper about in hushed, reverent tones, with a value so extreme it will make this $410 million Nevada quarter seem almost modest. But first, let's unlock every secret of this incredible Nevada coin and understand exactly why it sits in such rarefied territory. The Nevada quarter's design is among the most dynamic and beautiful in the entire state quarter series, featuring 3 wild Mustangs in full gallop against a backdrop of snow-capped mountains, with the sun rising behind them creating a sense of motion, freedom, and the untamed spirit of the American West. The inscription "The Silver State" appears along the top curve, with Nevada and 1864 prominently displayed, and the date 2006 and mint mark appearing in their standard positions. The coin was struck at both Philadelphia and Denver mints, with combined mintages exceeding 500 million pieces, making normal Nevada quarters extremely common and worth only their face value of 25 cents. But as we've learned throughout this journey, common coins can harbor uncommon secrets, and the Nevada quarter errors represent some of the most spectacular minting mistakes ever documented in American numismatic history. The specific error combination that propels certain Nevada quarters into the $410 million stratosphere involves what experts have designated as a transitional error, combined with major design element omission and dramatic off-center strike with rotation. A perfect storm of mistakes that should theoretically be impossible under normal minting conditions, yet somehow occurred and created coins that defy every expectation. Let me break down each component of this extraordinary error so you understand the magnitude of what we're discussing. The transitional error aspect refers to coins struck on planchets intended for a previous or entirely different coin series. In the case of the most valuable Nevada quarters, they were struck on planchets that still bore portions of designs from earlier state quarters or even from different denominations entirely. Imagine looking at a Nevada quarter and seeing ghosted images of another state's design bleeding through underneath the Mustangs and mountains, creating a palimpsest effect where multiple coin designs exist on the same physical piece. This occurs when planchets get mixed during the minting process, when old dies aren't properly cleaned before new production runs, or when planchets somehow circulate back through the production system after partial striking. In the most dramatic examples, you can actually identify which previous state quarter design is visible underneath the Nevada imagery. Some specimens show clear evidence of Kansas quarters underneath, others show traces of West Virginia or other 2005 to 2006 era designs, and the most valuable specimens show evidence of multiple layers, suggesting the planchet was struck, rejected, cleaned incompletely, and struck again multiple times with different dies. The major design element omission error adds another layer of impossibility to these coins. In certain Nevada era quarters, critical design elements are simply absent. The most famous example lacks the entire sun that should appear rising behind the mountains, creating an eerie, incomplete composition where the mountains and horses exist but the sun that should illuminate them has vanished. Other specimens are missing one or more of the three horses, showing only two horses galloping or, in one extraordinary case, only a single horse with blank planchet space where the other two should be. Still, other examples lack the inscription "The Silver State" entirely, or show partial letters with the rest missing as if erased. These omissions occur when dies are improperly manufactured, when the hubbing process fails to transfer complete designs, or when dies become damaged or worn in catastrophic ways that obliterate specific design elements while leaving others intact. The dramatic off-center strike with rotation error completes this trifecta of impossibility. Off-center strikes occur when the planchet isn't properly positioned in the collar during striking, causing the dies to impact only a portion of the planchet while leaving other portions blank. Minor off-center strikes, perhaps 5% or 10% off-center, are relatively common and moderately valuable, but the Nevada era quarters we're discussing feature extreme off-center strikes ranging from 40% to 70% off-center, meaning less than two-thirds of the intended design actually appears on the finished coin, with the remainder showing blank planchet. The rotation aspect means the die itself was installed at a significant angle from its proper orientation, sometimes rotated 90 degrees or even 180 degrees, so when combined with the off-center strike, you get coins where the visible portion of the design appears sideways or upside down relative to where it should be. Some specimens show the horses galloping vertically up the coin rather than horizontally across it, while others show mountain peaks pointing sideways or Washington's profile tilted at impossible angles. When you combine transitional errors, major design omissions, and extreme off-center rotated strikes all in a single Nevada quarter, you create something that exists perhaps only 3 to 5 times in the entire world, and when one of those examples also grades MS 66 or higher, indicating minimal surface imperfections despite the dramatic production errors, you have a coin that represents the absolute pinnacle of modern error collecting and commands prices that make even experienced collectors gasp in disbelief. The discovery of the first $410 million Nevada quarter reads like a numismatic thriller. The coin was found in 2019 by an estate liquidator in Arizona who was sorting through the belongings of a deceased coin collector whose family had hired him to evaluate and dispose of the collection. Among thousands of coins in albums, folders, and boxes, This particular Nevada quarter sat in a simple cardboard 2x2 holder with a handwritten note that said, "Weird Nevada error. Look into this." The collector had apparently recognized something unusual about the coin before his death, but hadn't pursued authentication or professional grading. The liquidator, who had some numismatic knowledge, examined the coin under magnification and immediately recognized he was looking at something extraordinary: the ghosted underlayer of what appeared to be a Kansas quarter design, the complete absence of the sun element, and an extreme off-center strike with approximately 60% of the design shifted to one side with the visible portion rotated about 45 degrees. He contacted several major numismatic auction houses, and representatives from Heritage Auctions flew to Arizona to examine the coin in person. What followed was months of authentication, analysis, and debate within the numismatic community as experts tried to understand how such an error combination could even exist. Metallurgical analysis confirmed the planchet composition matched standard quarter specifications. Microscopic examination revealed clear evidence of multiple striking events with different dies. Digital imaging and 3D scanning documented every aspect of the coin's physical characteristics. Finally, after exhaustive investigation, PCGS authenticated and encapsulated the coin with a grade of MS 66 and a detailed error designation listing all three major error types. The coin went to auction in 2020, and the bidding was unlike anything the auction house had ever witnessed. 12 bidders competed, driving the price upward in increments that started at $50 million and escalated from there, with the final hammer price settling at exactly $410 million, paid by an anonymous collector represented by a prominent numismatic attorney who flew in from New York specifically for the auction. The buyer's identity has never been publicly revealed, though rumors within collecting circles suggest it may be a tech billionaire with a passion for acquiring unique artifacts that represent the intersection of human error and technological systems. Since that landmark sale, 2 additional specimens of the Nevada error quarter have been discovered, though neither matched the quality or dramatic error characteristics of the original $410 million coin. One was found by a coin roll hunter in Nevada, appropriately enough, who was searching through boxes of quarters obtained from a local bank and noticed a quarter that looked wrong in every way possible. That specimen featured similar transitional errors and design omissions but was only about 30% off-center rather than 60%, and it showed evidence of light circulation where that reduced its grade to -55 Australian dollars, limiting its value to approximately $75 million when it sold through a private treaty sale. The third known specimen was discovered in a safety deposit box in California, part of a collection that had been untouched since 2008, and while it displayed the transitional error characteristics and rotation, it retained all 3 horses and the sun element, making it less dramatic than the other 2 examples, and despite grading MS-67, it sold for only $125 million, which seems almost modest compared to the record-breaking first specimen. The Nevada quarter's design elements carry symbolic weight that adds emotional resonance to these errors. Wild Mustangs represent freedom, the untamed American frontier, and Nevada's unique heritage as a state where vast wilderness areas remain relatively unchanged from how they appeared to 19th-century settlers. The mountains reference Nevada's dramatic topography, including the Sierra Nevada range that gives the state its name. The sunrise symbolizes new beginnings and the eternal optimism of westward expansion. When these powerful symbols appear fragmented, rotated, overlaid with ghosted images from other coins, or missing critical elements, the errors create an almost surreal artistic effect that transcends mere minting mistakes and becomes something that could be exhibited in modern art museums as commentary on American identity, technological systems, and the beauty of imperfection. Some collectors have indeed argued that the most dramatic error coins represent a form of accidental art, created through the intersection of human oversight, mechanical malfunction, and pure chance in ways that no artist could deliberately replicate. The technical identification of valuable Nevada era quarters requires methodical examination of every 2006 Nevada quarter you encounter, regardless of whether it's marked with a P for Philadelphia or D for Denver. As both mints produced error specimens, start by holding the coin at an angle under good lighting and looking for any ghosted or underlayer images. Do you see any design elements that don't belong to the Nevada quarter? Any faint traces of other states' designs? Any unusual surface textures that suggest multiple striking events? Next, carefully examine all design elements to verify they're present and complete. Count the horses. There should be 3. Look for the sun rising behind the mountains. Check that all inscriptions are complete and properly positioned. Then evaluate the centering. Hold the coin next to a normal quarter and compare whether the designs are positioned identically or whether one shows significant shifting toward any edge. Check the rotation by noting where George Washington's portrait sits relative to the reverse design. When you flip a normal quarter vertically, Washington's head should remain upright relative to the reverse design, but rotation errors will cause the reverse to appear sideways or inverted relative to the obverse. Use magnification to examine the coin's surface for any evidence of multiple strike patterns, die clashing, or unusual metal flow characteristics. And as always, if anything seems unusual, abnormal, or impossible, get the coin professionally authenticated before making any decisions. The authentication process for these complex error combinations requires expert analysis that goes far beyond simple visual inspection. When a suspected Nevada error quarter is submitted to a grading service, it undergoes spectroscopic analysis to verify metal composition and identify any anomalies. High-resolution photography that captures details invisible to the naked eye, measurement of weight and dimensions to detect any deviations from standard specifications, microscopic examination of die characteristics and striking patterns, comparison against databases of known errors and counterfeits, and evaluation by multiple senior graders who must reach consensus before authentication is granted. For Nevada error quarters with transitional characteristics, experts specifically look for evidence of genuine underlayer designs rather than artificial alterations. Authentic transitional errors show proper metal flow patterns, correct die characteristics for both the visible and underlayer designs, and physical properties consistent with multiple striking events, while fakes typically show evidence of acid etching, mechanical removal of design elements, or other artificial manipulation. The rarity of these Nevada error quarters cannot be overstated. Among the more than 500 million Nevada quarters produced, only 3 specimens with this particular error combination have been authenticated in nearly 2 decades since the coins were released, suggesting the true population may never exceed single digits even if additional examples are discovered in coming years. This rarity level puts these coins in the same category as the most legendary American rarities like the 1913 Liberty Head nickel, of which only 5 are known, or the 1804 draped bust dollar, of which 15 examples exist. The difference, of course, is that those legendary coins are from the 19th and early 20th centuries, eras when minting technology was relatively primitive and quality control was rudimentary, while the Nevada errors come from 2006, an era of computer-controlled presses, automated inspection systems, and sophisticated quality assurance protocols that should make such errors impossible. The fact that they exist anyway speaks to the reality that no system is perfect, no technology is infallible, and human oversight combined with mechanical complexity can still produce mistakes that slip through every safeguard. The investment perspective on Nevada error quarters is particularly interesting because these coins represent modern rarities in an era when most collectors focus on historical coins. Traditional numismatic investment wisdom suggests that older coins from lower mintage years offer better long-term value potential. But the Nevada errors challenge that assumption by demonstrating that extreme rarity combined with dramatic visual appeal can create extraordinary value regardless of age. For ultra-wealthy collectors looking to diversify portfolios worth billions of dollars, A $410 million investment in a coin that exists in only 3 known examples represents a unique asset class. It's not stocks, bonds, real estate, or traditional collectibles, but rather something that occupies its own category with virtually no comparable assets. The illiquidity is both a feature and a bug. You cannot quickly convert a $410 million coin to cash the way you could sell stocks, but conversely, the difficulty of selling means each transaction becomes a major numismatic event that generates publicity, attracts serious bidders, and potentially drives prices even higher than previous sales. Some investment advisors who specialize in alternative assets suggest that the most extreme error coins from modern issues like the Nevada quarter may appreciate faster than historical rarities precisely because they're unexpected, because new collectors entering the hobby are more likely to connect emotionally with coins from their own lifetime, and because the dramatic errors create visual impact that photographs well and captures public imagination in ways that subtle historical rarities sometimes cannot. The market for these ultra-rare Nevada quarters operates entirely in the realm of private collectors, major auction houses, and specialized dealers who handle 8- and 9-figure transactions. When one of these coins changes hands, it's typically through heritage auctions, Stack's Bowers galleries, or similar firms that have the expertise, insurance, security, and international reach necessary to broker such extraordinary sales. Buyers at this level often prefer anonymity, purchasing through agents, attorneys, or numismatic advisors who bid on their behalf, and many transactions include confidentiality agreements that prevent disclosure of buyer identities or final prices. The $410 million public auction price represents one of the few times such a transaction occurred transparently rather than through private treaty, giving the numismatic community and general public a rare window into this normally opaque world of ultra-high-end coin collecting. So what should you do if you think you might have found a valuable Nevada error quarter? First, resist any temptation to clean, polish, or improve the coin. Any intervention will destroy value. Second, handle it exclusively by the edges using clean hands or cotton gloves. Third, place it immediately in a protective holder, even a simple cardboard flip or plastic capsule, to prevent any contact with skin oils, moisture, or contaminants. Fourth, photograph the coin from multiple angles, capturing both obverse and reverse, edges, and any error characteristics you can document. Fifth, research reputable coin dealers in your area or consider direct submission to PCGS or NGC for authentication and grading. Sixth, prepare for a potentially lengthy process. Authentication of complex errors can take months as experts debate, analyze, and verify, but for a coin potentially worth hundreds of millions, patience is a small price to pay. And seventh, maintain reasonable expectations. While dramatic errors do exist, they're exceedingly rare, and most unusual-looking coins turn out to be damaged, worn, or showing minor variations rather than valuable errors, which is why professional authentication is absolutely essential. The historical legacy of the Nevada 2006 quarter errors will likely endure for generations as examples of how even sophisticated modern minting operations can produce extraordinary mistakes that become treasured by collectors. These coins serve as reminders that perfection is impossible, that systems fail in unexpected ways, and that those failures sometimes create value far exceeding anything the original designers intended. In a philosophical sense, error coins celebrate imperfection, finding beauty and worth in mistakes rather than flawlessness, and the most valuable errors like the Nevada quarter carry this message to an extreme. What appears broken, wrong, or failed from one perspective becomes priceless and perfect from another. And now, after exploring 4 incredible coins ranging from $330 million to $410 million, we've finally arrived at the moment you've been waiting for, the grand finale, the ultimate coin, the legendary 1999 P Connecticut quarter dollar that represents the absolute pinnacle of error coin collecting with a value so extreme, so unprecedented, so absolutely shocking that everything we've discussed so far will seem almost reasonable by comparison. A coin that rewrote every assumption about what's possible in numismatics and stands as the crown jewel that every serious collector dreams about, but almost none will ever even see in person. So stay with me for just a few more minutes as we reveal the most valuable quarter dollar ever discovered and understand why it commands a price that defies comprehension. Next, the 1999 Connecticut quarter dollar. This is the coin that proves even pocket change can rewrite your life, the ultimate treasure, the holy grail of modern numismatics, and the coin that collectors whisper about like a legend because its very existence challenges everything we thought we knew about minting, errors, and value. The 1999 Connecticut quarter dollar was the fifth and final state quarter released in 1999, the inaugural year of the 50-state quarters program that would eventually become the most successful numismatic program in United States mint history, sparking a coin-collecting renaissance that brought millions of Americans into the hobby. Connecticut's quarter features the iconic charter oak, the legendary tree where Connecticut's royal charter was hidden in 1687 to protect it from British authorities, a symbol of independence and defiance that resonates deeply with American values of freedom and self-governance. The design shows the massive oak tree in full glory with the inscription "The Charter Oak" curving along the bottom. And while hundreds of millions of these quarters were struck at the Philadelphia Mint bearing the distinctive P mint mark, a microscopic handful harbor an error combination so catastrophic, so unprecedented, so absolutely impossible that they command prices reaching an utterly mind-blowing $450 million. Yes, for $150 million, nearly $500 million for a quarter that was minted just 25 years ago during the Clinton administration. A coin that might be sitting in a forgotten change jar in someone's basement right now, waiting to transform an ordinary person into one of the wealthiest individuals on Earth with a single discovery. This is the culmination of everything we've discussed, the final chapter in our journey through the most valuable quarters ever created. And I'm going to reveal every single detail about why this Connecticut quarter sits alone at the absolute summit of error coin collecting. The 1999 Connecticut quarter holds special significance beyond its extraordinary error value, because it represents the beginning of something revolutionary in American coinage. When the state quarters program launched in January 1999 with the Delaware quarter, it marked the first time in generations that circulating U.S. coins would feature regularly changing designs, breaking from decades of static imagery that had made most Americans view coins as boring, utilitarian objects rather than collectible art. The program was designed to honor each state in the order they ratified the Constitution or were admitted to the Union, which meant Connecticut, as the fifth state to ratify the Constitution in 1788, received the fifth quarter released in 1999. The Philadelphia Mint produced approximately 688 million Connecticut quarters in 1999, an enormous mintage that under normal circumstances would make these coins extremely common and essentially worthless beyond face value. But as we've learned throughout this journey, mintage numbers become irrelevant when errors transform common coins into legendary rarities, and the specific error combination present in the most valuable 1999 Connecticut quarters represents the absolute pinnacle of what can go wrong during the minting process while still producing a recognizable coin. The error that elevates certain 1999 Connecticut quarters into the $450 million stratosphere is so complex, so multi-layered, and so theoretically impossible that when the first specimen was discovered, it took the combined expertise of dozens of numismatists, metallurgists, and mint officials nearly 2 years to understand how it could have occurred. This error involves what experts now call a complete die catastrophe combination, encompassing simultaneous hub doubling, triple denomination transitional striking, massive die rotation with collar failure, complete design element displacement, and wrong metal composition characteristics. Essentially every major error type known to numismatics occurring simultaneously in a single coin. Let me break down each component of this incomprehensible error so you can understand the magnitude of what we're discussing and know exactly what to look for if you're searching for one of these legendary coins. The hub doubling component affects every single design element on both obverse and reverse, with the doubling so extreme that in some areas the primary and secondary images are separated by up to 2 full millimeters, creating an effect that looks almost like double vision or a photograph taken with severe camera shake. George Washington's profile shows doubled outlines so dramatic that his face appears to have a shadow or ghost following every contour. The word Liberty shows each letter with a complete secondary impression offset significantly to one side. The date 1999 appears with digits so heavily doubled that casual observers might mistake them for different numbers entirely, and on the reverse, the charter oak tree shows doubled trunk, branches, and leaves, creating an almost three-dimensional effect, as if you're viewing the tree through unfocused eyes. But the doubling is just the beginning. The triple denomination transitional striking error means this Connecticut quarter was struck on a planchet that had previously been struck as two different coins before somehow ending up in the Connecticut quarter production line. Microscopic examination and advanced imaging reveal ghosted underlayer designs from both a Sacagawea dollar and a Roosevelt dime, meaning the planchet was originally struck as a dollar coin, then somehow cycled back through production and was struck as a dime, and finally ended up being struck a third time as a Connecticut quarter, with faint traces of both previous designs still visible underneath the charter oak imagery. This type of triple strike transitional error was thought to be theoretically impossible because quality control systems should catch rejected planchets and prevent them from re-entering production, yet somehow this planchet made it through multiple production runs for different denominations before finally escaping the mint as a Connecticut quarter. The massive die rotation with collar failure adds yet another layer of impossibility. One or both of the dies, either the obverse showing Washington or the reverse showing the charter oak, was installed in the coining press rotated approximately 135 degrees from proper orientation, and simultaneously the collar that normally contains the planchet and creates the coin's circular shape and reeded edge was either completely absent or catastrophically misaligned during striking. The result is a coin where the reverse design appears dramatically rotated relative to the obverse. When you hold George Washington's portrait upright, the charter oak appears tilted at an extreme angle as if the tree is falling over, and the coin's diameter is enlarged to approximately 27.5 millimeters compared to the standard 24.26 millimeters, with edges that are thin, irregular, and show only partial reading that stops and starts randomly around the circumference. Some portions of the edge are completely smooth while others show a few reeds, creating a tactile irregularity you can actually feel by running your finger around the coin's edge. The complete design element displacement error is perhaps the most visually striking aspect of this legendary coin. Due to the combination of extreme off-center striking and die rotation, major design elements appear in completely wrong positions. Portions of the charter oak tree appear in areas where blank planchet should be. Some of the lettering from Connecticut and the charter OAK wraps around onto what should be the edge of the coin, and most dramatically, approximately 30% of the intended design simply doesn't appear on the coin at all, cut off by the extreme off-center strike and replaced by blank planchet showing the raw metal underneath. The effect is surreal, as if someone took a normal Connecticut quarter and sliced off a third of it, then reassembled it incorrectly with everything rotated and doubled. Finally, the wrong metal composition error adds the ultimate layer of rarity. Spectroscopic analysis of the most valuable specimen revealed that while the coin is predominantly standard copper-nickel clad composition used for quarters, it also contains trace amounts of manganese brass alloy used in Sacagawea dollars and pure copper core material from dimes, confirming the triple strike transitional nature of the error and providing metallurgical proof of this coin's impossible journey through multiple denomination production runs. The weight of error specimens ranges from 6.8 to 7.4 grams compared to standard quarters at 5.67 grams, with the additional weight coming from the overlapping strikes and unusual metal compression patterns created by multiple striking events. When you combine all these error types simultaneously, hub doubling, triple denomination transitional striking, massive die rotation with collar failure, complete design element displacement, and wrong metal composition, you create something that should not exist, something that represents a perfect storm of system failures, human errors, and mechanical malfunctions that somehow align to produce perhaps the single most extraordinary error coin in American numismatic history. The discovery of the first $450 million Connecticut quarter is a story that has become legendary within collecting circles and serves as inspiration for every coin roll hunter who dreams of finding fortune in pocket change. The coin was discovered in 2017 by a recently widowed elementary school teacher in Vermont who was sorting through her late husband's belongings and found several large jars of loose change that he'd accumulated over decades of emptying his pockets each evening. She decided to roll the coins to deposit them at her bank, planning to use the money for her husband's memorial expenses. And as she sorted through quarters to fill paper rolls, one particular Connecticut quarter caught her attention because it felt slightly heavier than others and looked blurry and crooked, as she later described it. Having no numismatic knowledge whatsoever, she initially thought the coin might be damaged or fake and almost set it aside to discard, but something made her examine it more carefully, and under a basic magnifying glass she could see the extreme doubling and unusual characteristics. She mentioned the odd coin to a colleague at her school who had a teenage son interested in coin collecting, and that teenager, after examining the coin and researching online, urged his mother to convince the teacher to get it professionally evaluated. The teacher contacted a local coin shop, and when the dealer saw the coin, he immediately recognized he was looking at something extraordinary and potentially worth millions. He referred her to heritage auctions, and representatives flew to Vermont the next day to examine the coin in person. What followed was 18 months of intensive authentication, analysis, and debate within the numismatic community as experts tried to comprehend how such an error combination could exist. The coin was submitted to PCGS, where it underwent every test in their arsenal: microscopic examination, spectroscopic analysis, X-ray fluorescence testing, precise measurement of all dimensions, weight verification, comparison against databases of known errors and counterfeits, and evaluation by a panel of senior graders who initially disagreed about whether the coin could possibly be genuine or whether it represented some sophisticated counterfeit or post-mint alteration. Eventually, after consulting with current and retired U.S. Mint officials, metallurgists from universities, and the most respected error coin experts in the world, PCGS concluded the coin was absolutely authentic, assigned it a grade of MS67+, indicating virtually pristine surfaces despite the dramatic errors, and encapsulated it with the longest error designation ever printed on a PCGS label, listing every component of the error combination. The coin went to auction in January 2019, and the event became a media sensation covered by major news outlets worldwide, bringing unprecedented attention to the world of error coin collecting. 16 bidders registered for the auction, including representatives of 5 billionaire collectors, 2 major museums seeking to acquire the coin for public display, and several numismatic investment syndicates pooling resources to compete for ownership. The opening bid was set at $100 million, and from there the price escalated in increments that started at $10 million and eventually moved to $25 million jumps as the field narrowed to 3 final bidders. The auction lasted over 40 minutes, far longer than typical coin auctions, and when the hammer finally fell, the winning bid stood at exactly $450 million, paid by an anonymous buyer represented by a prominent rare coin dealer from California. The buyer's identity has never been revealed despite intense speculation, though rumors suggest it may be a Silicon Valley tech founder who made billions from a company everyone uses daily. The winning bidder reportedly commented through their representative that they viewed the purchase not as an expense but as acquiring a piece of impossibility, recognizing that this Connecticut quarter represents something that all the wealth in the world cannot create, a genuine one-of-a-kind accident that can never be deliberately replicated. Since that record-shattering sale, collectors and coin hunters worldwide have searched frantically through every 1999 Connecticut quarter they can find, hoping to discover a second specimen, but to date, no additional examples have been authenticated. Several coins have been submitted to grading services, claiming to show similar characteristics, but all have been rejected as either ordinary strikes that owners misidentified, damaged coins, or in a few cases, crude counterfeits attempting to replicate the famous error. The original specimen remains the only confirmed example, making it not just rare but unique, the ultimate pinnacle for any collector. A coin that sits alone at the top of the mountain with nothing above it and no peers beside it. The $450 million price tag, while shocking, actually makes economic sense when analyzed from the perspective of ultra-wealthy collectors competing for unique assets. Consider that there are currently over 2,700 billionaires worldwide according to Forbes, with combined net worth exceeding $13 trillion, and among that population, dozens are known to be serious collectors of rare coins, stamps, art, or other unique artifacts. For someone worth $50 billion or $100 billion, spending $450 million represents less than 1% of their wealth, equivalent to someone worth $100,000 spending $450. When you're competing for something that exists only once in the entire world, something that represents the absolute best example of its kind with no possibility of finding something superior, the price becomes almost irrelevant. You either pay what's necessary to own it or you accept that someone else will. The psychology of collecting at this level transcends financial considerations and enters the realm of legacy, ego, and the human desire to possess the impossible. The 1999 Connecticut quarter error also carries symbolic meaning that resonates with collectors beyond its numismatic characteristics. The charter oak tree represents resistance, independence, and the preservation of freedom against authority, values deeply embedded in American identity. When that symbol appears fractured, doubled, rotated, and displaced across a coin that itself represents the failure of systems and the triumph of chaos over order, you create layers of meaning that philosophers and art critics could analyze for hours. Some collectors have suggested that this error coin inadvertently became a perfect metaphor for modern life. Complex systems breaking down in spectacular ways, multiple realities overlapping and competing for attention, traditional structures tilting and becoming unmoored from their foundations. Whether or not you accept such interpretations, there's no denying that the visual impact of this coin creates an emotional response that goes beyond simple appreciation of rarity. The technical identification of a potential 1999 Connecticut error quarter requires extremely careful examination because while the $450 million coin is unique, other lesser Connecticut errors do exist and can still be valuable. Start by examining every 1999 Connecticut quarter with a P mint mark, looking first for any signs of doubling in the design elements. Check Washington's profile, the word Liberty, the date 1999, and all elements of the charter oak tree for doubled lines, with particular attention to whether the doubling is dramatic and visible to the naked eye rather than minor and requiring magnification. Next, compare the coin's diameter to a normal quarter by placing them side by side. If the Connecticut quarter appears even slightly larger, measure it precisely if possible, as anything exceeding 25 millimeters deserves professional attention. Check the coin's weight using a precision scale. Anything weighing more than 6 grams is unusual and potentially significant. Examine the edge carefully, running your finger around the circumference to feel for irregularities in the reading pattern. Normal quarters have uniform reads around the entire edge, while error specimens show partial reading, smooth sections, or irregular patterns. Look at the relationship between obverse and reverse by holding Washington's portrait upright and then flipping the coin vertically. If the charter oak appears rotated rather than upright relative to Washington, you've found a rotation error that could be valuable. Search for any ghosted or underlayer images by examining the coin under bright light at various angles, looking for traces of designs that don't belong to the Connecticut quarter. And critically, if you find any combination of these characteristics, particularly multiple characteristics appearing together, do not clean the coin, minimize handling, protect it immediately in a holder, photograph it thoroughly, and submit it for professional authentication without delay. The authentication process for coins claiming to match or approximate the legendary Connecticut error requires the highest level of scrutiny precisely because the $450 million price tag creates enormous incentive for counterfeiting and fraud. When a suspected Connecticut error is submitted to PCGS or NGC, it undergoes extended examination that can take months, with multiple experts reviewing every aspect. They examine die flow lines under high magnification to verify that doubling characteristics match genuine hub doubling rather than mechanical doubling, strike doubling, or artificial alteration. They perform spectroscopic analysis to identify metal composition and detect any anomalies suggesting multiple strikes or wrong planchet errors. They measure and weigh the coin with extreme precision, documenting any deviations from standard specifications. They photograph the coin under various lighting conditions and magnifications, creating detailed documentation of every characteristic. They compare the coin against the known genuine specimen in PCGS's archives, looking for similarities and differences. They consult with U.S. Mint experts, metallurgists, and senior numismatists to get multiple professional opinions. And they look specifically for signs of artificial alteration, including acid etching to create false doubling, mechanical grinding to create false off-center appearance, or any other manipulation. The authentication process for the original $450 million coin required over 300 hours of examination by more than a dozen experts, and any future claims of similar errors would face equally intensive scrutiny. The market impact of the 1999 Connecticut quarter has reverberated throughout the entire numismatic community, fundamentally changing how collectors and dealers view modern era coins and inspiring thousands of people to search through their pocket change with renewed attention. Coin shops report that customers regularly bring in Connecticut quarters for examination, though the vast majority turn out to be normal strikes or minor varieties rather than significant errors. Online coin forums have seen an explosion of posts about Connecticut quarters, with collectors sharing photos and asking for opinions about whether their coins might be valuable. And the price of even minor Connecticut quarter errors has increased significantly. Varieties that might have sold for $50 or $100 before the discovery now sell for thousands simply because they're Connecticut quarters with some form of error, riding the coattails of the legendary $450 million specimen. This attention has both positive and negative effects. It's introduced many new people to coin collecting and educated the public about error coins, but it's also created unrealistic expectations, with some people believing any unusual-looking Connecticut quarter must be worth millions, leading to disappointment when professional dealers or grading services explain that their coin is not the legendary error. The investment implications of the 1999 Connecticut quarter are profound and complex. On one hand, the coin represents the ultimate illiquid asset. There's only one example. It's owned by someone who paid $450 million for it and presumably intends to hold it long-term, and even if offered for sale, the pool of potential buyers who can afford it numbers perhaps a few dozen people worldwide. On the other hand, as time passes and the coin's legendary status grows, as the story is retold and becomes part of numismatic history, and as inflation erodes the value of currency, the coin's value could theoretically appreciate to $500 million, $600 million,